If you build software or lead people who do, then you're in the right place. This is Hard Calls. Real decisions, real leaders, real outcomes. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Hard Calls, the podcast where we bring the best product leaders from all around the world to talk about best practices, tips, tricks, scaling lessons, and of course, the hard calls they've had to make. Today, we're mixing it up a little bit, and we are live from Pendo's headquarters in Raleigh, North Carolina. And I am with the co-founder and CEO, Todd Olson. Hi, Todd.
Hey, Trisha, how you doing?
Good. Well, as you know, and the listeners know, we always start hard calls with talking about a hard call you've had to make. But before we jump into that, I want everyone to get to know you a little bit and how we work together a little bit, and then we'll get into the hard call.
Sounds good.
For all of you guys, I was hired as the CPO here at Pendo about 4 years ago. Todd hired me in. And I often get the question, how is it to be a CPO and work for Todd? Most of you probably already know Todd is one of the top product thought leaders, has been a product leader for most of his career before coming and founding Pendo. He wrote the book on being product-led. And so obviously being a CPO and working for someone like Todd can probably feel intimidating to many people. And they often just ask me, like, how did you find your footing? How was it to work with him? So I'd love for you to just share like what your thoughts are on bringing in a CPO and how that works.
Well, first off, I think very few things intimidate you. So I think you need to find someone who comes from, is cut from that cloth. That, obviously, if I'm speaking to someone and they're intimidated by me, it's just going to be a bad relationship from the start. I mean, I don't think any relationship in life is positive where like one person is intimidated or has issues with the other person, especially not in a leadership position. But look, I think you want, and I think you did this well, is you want to find someone who wants to partner with you, who doesn't try to like box you out, shut you out, rather finds a way in a very healthy way to sort of make room for you within the org. I mean, the reality is running an org at scale, there's a lot of things I probably don't want to do. Like a lot of things I don't want to do. A lot of things I didn't do.
Career frameworks and ladders.
But even like the details of execution around a lot of like which teams specifically, like no one wants me in that sausage making.
Yeah.
And heck, I doubt you were even that sausage making. You probably had one or two levels beneath you doing it, and you're providing, of course, accountability and oversight and leadership to all those folks. So like, look, I think what you need is someone who finds space and wants to collaborate and wants to work. And like we had a handful of sessions that I remember vividly where you brought me in and we had conversations. Like sometimes folks, one of our little hacks that we did that I thought was a lot of fun, and we still do to this day, is like sort of evening meetings, dinner meetings at the office. Yeah. We do some takeout, usually sushi. We're in a conference room. We got whiteboard markers going, and we're just like talking, brainstorming. Yeah. With everyone's idea is good and equal. I think that worked.
I remember that one session we had on our embedded guides, our embedded content feature. And I remember just sitting there and like getting your feedback and getting your opinion and putting it up there. And it's not like you directed me, you can't do this or you have to do this, but I want your feedback. You know the product, you're the founder, you know the space better than anyone. So for us to be able to collaborate on it, but not feel like it was directive, I think was critical for both of us.
Well, I hope. It was fun for me.
Me too.
And I hope it was fun for everyone. Yeah. I think it wasn't just you. You had I think a level beneath you and a level beneath. So
they were all in the room.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, I'm a builder and I like to build things and it brings me joy. And I think I like to think I'm my happiest self in some role where I can still build. And I'm not just stuck in. Everyone assumes I'm just as a CEO, I'm stuck in a bunch of meetings with, I don't know, bankers and finance people or whatever, and I have to do those things. That's part of my job as well. But I think that the building part, that's where the magic happens in companies. And that I think you need a relationship where people don't feel threatened. They feel like each person understands their space, their role. But and then it's having direct conversations like, hey, this didn't work for me, or hey, I like this more. I think having a good enough relationship where you can be open and honest and
Yeah.
direct with each other.
For sure.
Because you're not going to be...
It's not going to be perfect every time.
No, you're going to look, we all move very quickly.
Yeah.
When you move quickly, sometimes you forget to do something. You unintentionally exclude someone. May not even be me, maybe someone else. And I think working through that's really, really important.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. And it's just something people ask me all the time. And it's hard to explain how to make relationships work and working relationships and trust. But I think it's something we did really well, and hope that sharing that's helpful for everybody else.
The key is sushi at the office.
Sushi at the office.
Hours, that fixes most relationships.
Maybe a bottle of wine with the sushi. Maybe.
Yeah, a little wine won't hurt the creativity.
It doesn't. So Todd, this is Hard Calls. So I'd love for you to share with us one of the hard calls you've had to make in your career that was, fairly career defining for you.
Yeah, look, I think there are so many. I'm going to go back to one pre-Pendo, because I think it was one of the sort of interesting hard calls I made. I was, so this is at Rally Software just prior to Pendo. This is maybe 2 to 3 years before I started Pendo. I saw this opportunity to build this add-on product, and I was not the head of product there. I had no power, no control, no resources to do it. I was in product marketing, but I had this opportunity, and I saw this product, and actually some customer built some open source product using our APIs, and it was like, wow, all of our customers could use this. I mean, talk about product market fit. When you have a customer build an add-on to your product that uses your data, you're like, okay, I know, I want that. So I convinced a bunch of people to hire some consultants to take this open source product and start productizing it with customers. Over the next 3 to 6 months, that outsourced team grew and grew and grew into, it was honestly kind of a full-fledged engineering team, to the point where finally the CFO kind of woke up and was like, what's going on? We have is this some slush fund that you're directing funds to? And that ended up becoming a portfolio management add-on to our Agile project management solution, which the company ultimately sold to Computer Associates, which was in that space. But I think it was that not letting title, not letting role. I eventually took over product shortly thereafter, so then I actually had the ability to move move a bunch of engineering resources onto it. We pulled it in-house, but I think just not letting things get in your way.
Yeah.
I think that's how you make hard calls, and having conviction around something. So yeah, I'd say that's it.
I love that. I have often given product managers the advice when they ask me how do you get promoted? I'm like, well, if you work at a high growth company, you don't have to wait till there's a job opening or your boss leaves. I've always said, go create a hill and go stand on it. And it's exactly what you did. You created a hill.
Yeah, and so many people, they get hung up on their title or their role or this and that. And man, just go do it. Build a business case and just go get after it.
Make it happen.
And I think, and look, that I wasn't the CEO of the company. I think the reason I like that story is that plenty of people can say, well, now you can make hard calls because, blah, blah, blah. But I think anyone can make a hard call in a company. So you just have to have some conviction.
And what you did and pulled off is hard. But I do think today, with the tools at our disposal, especially with AI, doing what you did back then should be even easier for people.
Yes. Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, now I could have had AI take this open source project and work on it a bunch.
You wouldn't even need all that.
Yeah. No, I think, now it's a different world. And then speaking, of course, of hard calls, I think we're in a world today where literally every tech company is being faced with hard call after hard call after hard call. And it's completely unique and dynamic times. And while I used an older example, pre-Pendo, I could have very easily chosen a number of examples that are far more recent, in the last few weeks or the last few months, because I think now is a time where I am being, not forced is the wrong word, because it means it feels like something's pushing me to do it, but I feel conviction around the need to make harder calls.
Yeah. And is a lot of that just because of market dynamics? Is that because of AI and your belief in how software is changing?
Well, yeah, I think you want to be capturing and jumping onto some of the most interesting waves. If you think about what sort of pulled Pendo along, you could argue sort of the SaaS wave, when people were building up software as a service and the whole Cloud 100 community, and like we sold to pretty much every one of those customers, and the growth of those businesses fueled our growth. And that's kind of why we're sitting here in this nice office space. We grabbed onto that wave. But the next wave, or current wave, you can even argue, is AI. And we need to find a way to lasso that and jump on it, because that is going to fuel the next 5, maybe even 10 years of our growth. So the way I think of it is you want to be on the waves. That's going to like the natural market forces to drive the next level of growth. But then it's also very, very clear that these tools are redefining the way you run businesses. And there's, it's changing the way we develop software. It's changing the way we market to people. It's changing the way we're going to be selling to people. And because it's all very, very new, like the winners and losers are going to be ones that kind of figure out how to do it. Because the truth there is no, like people talk about.
There's no playbook right now for this.
Yeah, people talk about the SaaS playbook's dead, you got to do AI stuff, but they don't say what
There's
the
no
AI
playbook.
Yeah, and I speak with founders, both founders of AI companies who are younger than me. You could say they're AI native.
Yep.
Their age actually doesn't really matter. What matters is they've been creating AI companies from start. And I talk with them to learn, like, what are you doing? And I get some good nuggets, and there's some of it, we're all experimenting. But the truth is, they're just experimenting like the rest of us. And they have yet to figure it out. And because the truth is, we just don't know. We just don't know how to do things the right way, how to use these solutions. And the tools are changing. Nearly every week. And so that makes it very exciting, a little bit scary. But as someone who's honestly a lifelong entrepreneur, I've been starting companies since I was 20. To me, I feel like the company needs me to be more entrepreneurial. Go back to sort of this day one mindset that Amazon talks about. I think that is what the company needs from me now, because the reality is that at nearly 900 employees, we have a lot of folks here / leaders here who we hired because they're good at scaling big things.
Which is not the same thing as going back to AI native and rethinking how
very
you do.
different skill sets.
And you're at this interesting inflection where you actually need both.
Correct.
You need scale. You have enterprise customers. You have a pretty big company at this point. Yet at the same time, you've got to kind of start over with how you think about your product, supporting customers, how you do business. Like, how do you do both of those things at the same time?
Yeah, we can't be like, cowboys running this company. We're a decent sized business. And like we need professional HR practices and finance practices. We're, audited by a big 5, accounting firm. We need these things, obviously. Yet you kind of have to be comfortable throwing certain things away and experimenting. And the question is, who at the company has experience / interest in going back to sort of day one? And the truth is, it's like I'm one of the few people who's very comfortable in that world. So the company needs that out of me more. And while I still do plenty of scale things, I've got 12 hours of QBRs this week, where no tiny company would do. And maybe we won't do in 5 years. I don't know. I honestly don't know. But I'm going to do them the next 2 weeks because I think it's a good practice. I like reflection, but yeah, I think it's super interesting and dynamic.
It is really interesting, and I love what you're doing and challenging all of the status quo and processes and tools and the way we've done things. I think in product, when I talk to product managers, product leaders, the first thing I tell them is, if you are not trying out all of these AI tools, if you're not prototyping, if you're not changing up your product development life cycle, and I'm not even talking about putting AI in your product yet, I'm just talking about using it. I tell people all the time, as a product manager, you are going to be completely lost and not have a job in a very short period of time, because I think it is the most interesting time to be in product, but if you're not jumping on this wave and trying these new tools, you're just going to be lost.
No, 1,000%. And I include myself in that world. And
Yeah,
that
me
was
too.
one of the things that it took me longer than I would have liked. But for a while, obviously AI is happening. I go to our leadership team, you at the time, others, we need to do more, let's do this, let's do that. And we started doing things. I think we did our first AI hackathon like pretty early, like years ago.
Our AI launch was pretty early.
Years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was sort of our, we can call it 1.0, we can call it 0.5. I don't know. I don't like naming things, but that was our first foray into just like touching, experimenting. And you could see some teams we had were just more natural early adopters of it, playing around with it. And we did well. We got out there in the market. We started experimenting with customers. But I just felt very anxious the whole time we weren't doing enough. Now, I couldn't put my finger on what we needed to do. And I couldn't say, put 3 teams on ABC because I had no idea what ABC really was at the time. But I knew in my heart, I felt anxious for the last few years, which is a weird feeling to have. And it's not constructive either, just me walking around being anxious. But I think what happened is about 9-ish months ago, maybe longer, I really started personally playing around. Like you just said, product managers should be playing around and using this. I started playing around with it a lot more. And I started experimenting, not just with ChatGPT, which everyone sort of experimented with, but I started experimenting with some of the
prototyping
tools
and
like
the code generation
Zero
tools.
and Lovable and things like that. And as someone who is a programmer professionally, I get paid for it now, but I used to get paid for it. So I was a bit skeptical at first of all this, but once I started using it, I was blown away.
It is.
And is it right all the time? No. And does it like generate code that has bugs? Yes.
Yeah.
But if you tell it, go fix it, it tries and does a decent job. And if you give it more direction, and then the other thing is the models are getting better and better. So like maybe 1 week it generates sort of the wrong thing, and then 3 weeks later it generates sort of the right thing.
Yeah.
You can kind of see where it's going, and you're like, wow. And I still felt it was valuable for me to have technical skills, but it was also valuable that I have product skills. And I'm not a designer. That's the interesting thing is a lot of us who are builders, we have majors and minors. And look, I cannot design things, period. So I'm just going to say period. No one's ever put me in front of Figma. I've never used Photoshop in my life. I think I have a taste. I have things I like and things I dislike.
You have an eye for it.
I appreciate certain things that are well designed. And my wife doesn't think so about furniture, but I think I have a decent taste. But certainly on software design, I think I have pretty good taste. But then of course product, I would say, is sort of a major of mine. I've been doing now for years. I feel like I have a pretty good skill set there. And then of course, engineering and coding, I have a good skill set, but I probably am rusty. Not probably. Let's just say I am rusty.
Me too.
AI sort of fills in those gaps.
It does.
And that's the power that I started seeing is like it takes someone like me who is a major in something but I have some weaknesses in other areas, and it fills in those weaknesses. Yeah. And I get a lot done.
Yeah.
Now maybe it's not like production quality for like a Pendo, but it's a pretty darn good prototype that I could hand off to someone. And once I started playing around with it more and touching it more, it really helped drive a lot more clarity about what we needed to do. And then others in the org started playing around with it more. And that's when you realize just what's leadership about? It's about setting an example. Mm-hmm. And if I'm not playing around with it, which candidly I wasn't.
Can't expect everyone else to.
That really hit home. And look, I think the Shopify memo, which was earlier this year, and some people didn't like it, some people did like it. I had a chance to hear the president of Shopify, Harley, speak at a small event, and they use this term reflexive, and it resonates with me because I don't know about you, but like I still reflexively use Google for a lot of things. Mm-hmm. I have a question, I Google it.
I've kind of switched over to ChatGPT. My kids make fun of me all the time. They're like, Mom, that's something you could actually just Google. But I have kind of switched. My reflex now is to go to ChatGPT.
I'm still working on it. I mean, I would say I'm 50-50 now, but I'm not 80-20. And maybe there is a world where like depending on your kid's point, like Google's going to be better at certain things.
That's what their point was.
Than ChatGPT.
They're like, if you don't need an opinion, just go to Google.
Yeah. Well, and when you go to Google now, it gives you an AI summary at the top, which is pretty darn close to ChatGPT, which is pretty good. So like we're seeing these sort of like different ways of working evolve, and we're all experimenting with their own personal hacks. But if we don't do it ourselves, like we can't expect our org to do it.
So, you've talked about leading the way for your AI revolution at the company by playing with tools. You also went out and did a couple of exciting acquisitions in the AI space.
Yeah.
And so how do you think about that? Like, how do you think about, obviously when you're talking about internal and ways to work, it's about tinkering and experimenting and playing. But when you're talking about changing your product, for all of us product folks, acquisition is a great way to do it.
Yeah, look, I think it was clear that we needed to inject some different experiences, different skill sets, different DNA in the business. When we, so the first acquisition we made in the AI space was Zelta AI, and that was the result of actually us being, I would say, intentional in our M&A strategy. Yeah. We went out looking for a product that sort of solved that problem. And the problem was very, very specific, and everyone in product knows it. We have lots of qualitative data. It's sort of like scattered across our org in these different systems. Yes, PM could go and read through every
call
Jira
log
ticket
and Jira tickets.
Zendesk ticket, and pull out
enhancement requests.
No one does that, and but it's super valuable, and there's like gold in those hills, I like to say. And if we can find a way to ingest it all, and really surface those things, that's incredibly valuable to customers. And so we kind of set out to sort of be very intentional about acquiring it, as you know. And there, it was super interesting because as you meet companies, and some of our investors guided us on this, that you actually almost wanted younger companies, which may be counterintuitive, because if you started too long ago, you were pre-LLM, and a lot of those companies were rewriting their stacks to leverage LLMs.
Right. We wanted specifically the skill sets and the tech that was post LLMs.
Because they're just building things in different ways.
And that's the skill set we needed. We didn't need people who were learning it the same way we were learning and trying to pivot to it. We needed people who natively thought and built their products that way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's what we did. And I think it's been successful on a number of fronts. One, the product's great. We're excited about it. It's in market. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from customers around it. Some CEO grabbed me the other week at a conference and told me how it was transforming their product practices. So that felt really, really good. But also like the DNA change, whether it's like the engineering team operates differently, a little more agile, they've been using AI tools from day one. One of the things, I was sitting in an engineering meeting with one of the engineers from Zelta in a bigger engineering room, and it was all about how to use AI in engineering. And a bunch of engineers were talking about, it couldn't handle this tail recursion example that I had or whatever. I think a number of folks were experimenting with things, and like you passed some sophisticated algorithm and it got confused, et cetera, et cetera. And the engineer from Zelta, so that everyone was breaking it basically. You can't use it for this, can't use it for this, can't use it for this. And one thing that Mick said that really struck with me, he's like, look, I can spend 2 hours typing or 30 minutes reviewing. And it's just faster to spend 30 minutes reviewing code than it is 2 hours to type code. And it changed my mental model to like, are a lot of us gonna start really honing our editorial skills?
Yeah.
Where we may not be generating large swaths of content, but we may be curating it, we may be editing it.
Yeah.
And like, if you think about the world we're in now, like, we love editors and curators. Those are the people that are influencers across social media. Like the people that we all follow are essentially people pulling out the good bits and surfacing in us because that's what they think we should be looking at. And I think, so we've already as a culture started moving in this direction. I think we're gonna large language models, AM, generative AI, it's going to push us all to be a set of curators, editors, and that's actually pretty exciting for me.
It is. It is. It's really exciting. And then you followed on from Zelta and did another AI acquisition as well.
Correct. Yeah, and that, we've done 2 acquisitions in 12. Well, 3 actually. Technically, we acquired a small community called Product Collective. But yes, this is the most aggressive we've been in market since we started the company. We averaged by 1 every 2 years prior to this, and now we've done several in 1 year. And that was Forward.ai, and that was another intentional sort of a purchase. We know that our data is super valuable for certain business outcomes, like detecting churn or expansion signals, which ultimately are on driving revenue, like scoring leads or product qualified leads, things like that. But it's a hard problem. It's a hard problem. It not only do you have our raw data, which sort of needs to be cleansed and sort of massaged, and you need to sort of join it with CRM data and other data. Like, it's a relatively hard challenge. And look, some companies have data science teams, and they, 4 or 5 people, maybe half dozen people that can sort of do all that work.
I mean, we do.
We
have been doing that
But that's a rarer skill set. Yeah. And that when I talk to our customers, even some of our larger enterprise customers, they aren't doing that.
Yeah.
And this is an opportunity to take our data and honestly drive revenue for our customers, because when I talk to our customers, a lot of them they want to do this, they're trying to do this.
Yeah.
They have limited skill sets, like the skill set you need is like taking Pendo data and sort of making it relevant. Right. And they just don't understand it to the degree.
And the Pendo data is nuanced to get the right insights out of it.
It does need to be, it does depend on like how you set up your subscription in some instances, and we have all the expertise in that. But what we've seen is this our data is a really, really good, non-biased early warning signal for all these opportunities. So yeah, that's been really, really exciting, and it's just a great team. Another thing comes down to I've talked hopefully in both instances. Yes, the product, we were intentional, the use case we liked, but the team's adding something else, and this
entrepreneurial mindset, AI talent, different points of view of doing things.
Yeah, I mean, Kobe, was a product leader in our space. So obviously bringing his background and experience to Pendo is
super helpful.
Super helpful. Well, we already had a team in Israel, so like that, in some ways that made it actually really, really easy. Yeah. We had an office, like literally it closed. Next day, everyone's in an office doing a town hall, having lunch together. So
culture is important with these things. So both of the acquisitions that you talked about were really using AI to glean insights into your product.
Correct.
Into our product.
Mm-hmm.
But I know a lot of listeners, us too, when we think about AI, we think about insights, but we also think about this whole agentic world and where automation of workflows is going, conversational interfaces is going. And that's something I know that you've been working on, not just for Pendo and our product, but also supporting everybody else, all the other product people out there as well, and building their agentic experiences. So how are you instilling those new skills and talents? Because that's a different skill set than gleaning the insights that you were talking about from Zelta and Forward.
Correct. Well, the first thing, before I move on from insights, I will say like the first thing we sort of prioritized and built, which I feel really good about, it was clear as you're starting to, what do we do? At some level, we are measuring user interfaces and experiences. There's no question that the world's moving where we're still going to have clicks and scrolls and page loads, but some percentage of our user interfaces are going to be agentic, chat-like in nature, whatever co-pilot-ish, and there's so many different terms. And I don't know if that percentage is going to be, like some people probably are theorizing, it's going to be 100% of user experiences. I'm probably not on that boat where it's going to be 100%. I think power users are going to want different experiences. I know I, as a power user for software, like I just want to.
Sometimes you just want to go do something. I know how to do it. I just want to go in and
click a button or two. Like, right. I don't need to like type in a sentence every time I want to do anything. Right. So I personally don't think it'll be 100%, but I think a lot of people are going to try to do it and they're going to experiment with it. But regardless of what it is, I know that people are going to want to measure that part of their app. And if we see all these other stuff and we don't see this, then we're not providing 100% visibility into how people are experiencing your product. So the first thing we sort of prioritized was what we're calling agent analytics, which leveraging the same Pendo install, the same Pendo infrastructure. You can basically direct us to say, hey, take this agent. It starts pulling in the actual conversation. It starts giving you insights into how people are doing it, when they're doing it, how they're working in concert with the other parts of your product. Start getting, honestly, just 360-degree visibility of what's going on. So that was kind of step one. And that's powerful because as step two for us is, okay, now we need to add sort of that user interface element to our product and that different way of experiencing the product. And when we first started going down this path, honestly, we made an intentional decision to sort of let sort of teams run their own experiments independently. We did not centralize it. We didn't create one piece of infrastructure. There's just so many different types of infrastructure and so many different decisions. We decided that picking one too early could lead us down a path where pick the wrong one. So let teams experiment, give people creative license. And we did that. And we ended up with three agents, 4 agents, whatever whatever, I don't know what the exact number is, but a number of different agentic experiences in Pendo. Now you're going to start seeing us sort of unify. Now that we know enough to know what's working and what's not working, start creating some common infrastructure, common UI elements. We have an opinion now, almost a point of view, so to taste, so to speak, on what we think the right experience is long term. And that's the process we're sort of going through now.
So as product leaders, this is a conversation I have with other product leaders all the time, which is not the technical challenge of doing what you're about to do, but the emotional and change management of it. Because you go and you let your various teams and product teams build what they want to build, and they all think theirs is the coolest and the best. And there probably are pieces of each one of them that are the coolest and the best, but then you come up with sort of a combined point of view of where you want to go with one experience, and then everyone has to kill what they had built before. And there's this real sense of loss, because the best product managers love what they build. They fall in love with it. And then you got to tell them their baby's ugly, or even if their baby's not ugly, it's not the prettiest. And so how are you dealing with that in terms of, helping people still feel connected to the strategy and not feel that loss?
Yeah, look, I think we treat all of these things as, this goes back to the very classic book of Lean Startup, but I always say the value in all of this work, whether you throw it or not, is validated learnings. We have a validated learning around a certain path or a certain technology set. Maybe it doesn't scale the way we want. Maybe it doesn't quite hit our quality bar. Maybe it's hard to maintain. I think we're going to have to take some risks and be comfortable throwing things away in this new environment, just like we did day one. We're going to make mistakes, and technology, we're going to wake up one day and we're like, oh, wow, 05 just dropped, and it's freaking amazing, and we need to move everything to that, sorry, GPT-5. So I think it's just trying to reprogram people's mindset to be don't get too attached or married to anything, and but you also need to iterate very, very quickly. If you threw away 18 months of work, that's different than throwing away 6 weeks of work. So we're trying to move very, very quickly and continually evaluate it.
Yeah, I think it's important for all product managers and product leaders always to think this way. Quick experimentation, don't get too tied up in something or your idea, but right now with AI and how quickly things are moving and changing and what technology is allowing us to do today that it didn't 2 weeks ago, not 2 years ago, 2 weeks ago, more than ever, I think we all have to be comfortable with that.
Yeah. Well, look, one of my classic expressions in product is don't get married to your roadmap.
Yep.
Another one of my classic expressions is it's not your roadmap, it's my roadmap. Meaning it's the company's roadmap.
Yeah, that's right.
Just like it's not your budget, it's the company's budget.
That's right.
Like you are curating it, you're managing it on behalf of the company. But if you think it's yours,
right,
you are candidly wrong.
We owe outcomes to our investors, and we owe value to our customers.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what the roadmap is.
And if it's wrong, we will change it.
Yeah.
And I am completely unafraid. And look, you have to do with the constant, everything's changing. We can't even stay in one thing long enough to okay, great.
Yeah.
The
world is changing.
The world's changing. Now. I'm not changing it, but we're going to...
We didn't invent GPT-5, but we better take advantage of it.
Exactly. If you're not comfortable sort of adapting to the environment, you will miss out on things. And I don't want to miss out on anything. You know, that's certainly not how we're going to roll here.
Yeah, agree. So, Todd, we've talked a lot today about AI and the impact to Pendo, both using AI to build our products and sell our products and everything, and then also agentic experiences and insights in the product. But we also have a lot of sophisticated enterprise customers who love AI and are partnering with us on this AI journey, but they're still what I would call regular features and things that they need and expect from us. So how do you balance those things? How do you make sure you're taking care of your customers in the traditional sense, not just in terms of leading the charge with innovation and acquisitions?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the title of the podcast is Hard Calls. This is a hard call. What do you spend on, various pieces in various parts of the roadmap? I think this is why we all get paid the big bucks in product, is to make those decisions. And look, the truth is, you're going to have to invest in a lot of things for your enterprise customers, especially a company like Pendo, which is still sort of on its journey towards the enterprise.
Yeah.
Features like bulk operations. And look, I know that some engineers are like, well, that's not the exciting features. It's exciting for large enterprises.
Yeah.
If you just save them 20 hours of work because you did something in one click versus them spending an hour or 20 hours, whatever it is, those are the features you need to do. I mean, but what we often forget is that large enterprises, some of them are heavily regulated. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you don't build certain features for large enterprises, those folks get fired.
Yeah.
Or the company could get fined. They could end up on the front page of the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah.
And those are never usually good things. So those sort of bugs, those issues, so we need to be very vigilant and make sure we're investing for those large enterprise customers so that they can use our software, so that we protect them as they're sort of going through their journeys. Now, the cool thing is these two sort of pillars are coming together where these large enterprises many of them are trying to experiment with AI. They want to experiment with AI. They may not be exactly ready for it this moment, but they're going to want a partner like us who is already meeting their needs in other areas of their business to sort of help them along that journey.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we think the real opportunity is while we're now experimenting with it with maybe our more innovative customers, our smaller customers, startups even are starting to leverage some of our AI solutions. We'll work out the kinks. We'll perfect them. We'll get them, in a really production quality sort of position, and then we'll be able to bring a lot of those to our enterprise customers. And I think it's going to be a win-win for everyone. But yeah, you have to balance all these things, and it's going to be interesting as enterprises adopt AI. They're going to want more controls.
Yeah.
They want,
specific permissions. We can use this, but we can't use this. We can use certain types of AI, but we can't use other types of AI.
Exactly. They're going to want potentially to use their own large language models that are possibly tuned for their own environment.
Self-hosted and...
Yeah, there's a lot of examples like that are things that we would do for our large enterprise customers because there's really good reasons for those companies to require that, which still allow us to deliver a great product experience. So why, I'm not super concerned. Now, that's not ever a version 1.0 feature you're going to build, But yeah, I think you have to pay attention to both needs, and you have to invest heavily in both. And yeah, we have a lot of customers. If I showed up at our Pandemonium, which is our user conference, and said we're only building AI features,
people would get upset.
Yeah, they get upset, and rightly so.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the right decision.
Yeah.
But we're going to invest a lot in AI because I think the enterprises will want it. And we're already seeing like some of our large enterprise customers ask us for things. Agent analytics is a great example where we have some large enterprise customers that are starting to experiment with it and use it. And because they have mandates to play around with AI, and they just want to know, are these things working?
Yeah.
What are
people doing with it? What are they trying to solve? How are they using it? Who's using it?
Exactly. And because when I talk to some large enterprises, they're not seeing necessarily the benefits yet that they're reading about in the news. So they're hoping by better understanding how people are using it, they can tweak and tune and ultimately get those outcomes. So yeah, I think it's a constant balancing act, and we'll see how it goes.
Great. Well, Todd, thank you for being on Hard Calls today. This is obviously a fun episode for me to record, and just really appreciate you sharing your experience with us in terms of Pendo, and really fun to be here live in Raleigh.
Well, it's fun for me too, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Hard Calls, the product podcast where we share best practices and all the things you need to succeed. If you enjoyed the show today, share it with your friends and come back for more.